Welcome to Talking Down the Highway, a Beach Boys podcast presented by Strange Currencies Music. I'm Matt.
I'm Glenn.
I'm sleepy. But thanks to the Dr. Pepper company. Wait, who makes this? Yeah, I'm waking up because of the
Dr.
caffeine.
Pepper?
It's Diet Dr. Pepper.
Diet Dr. Pepper, all right.
I gotta say, they've perfected the diet.
It's
It's
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, like...
Coke Zero is similar, yeah. But this just tastes like a regular Dr. Pepper.
I've been drinking Coke Zero for a little over a year
like a
now.
commercial, yeah.
And I'd kind of gotten to the point where it's like, yeah, I'm really able to now just like feel like I can't psych myself out with it anymore. Mm-hmm. So I tried a Diet Dr. Pepper a week or two ago. And I was like, oh shit. Like,
Yeah.
This is pretty damn close. Like, I can fool myself now. So.
If you're listening, Dr. Pepper 7-Up Incorporated,
Well done.
we could use a sponsorship.
Yeah.
Yeah, no beer today. I'm still hydrating on water.
Yeah, I got water too. I didn't even offer you guys beers. Sorry.
Yeah, you know. It's
You guys are both working.
Summer's
basically.
over. Yeah,
but not for me.
seriously.
I got 2 weeks left, so I'm gonna enjoy it. In fact, I just found out that my Matador Records sent me an email. My box set of the Pavement Cautionary Tales Jukebox Classiques 7-inch box set has shipped. So I'm hoping it won't be here. Probably won't be here by the time this episode drops. We're recording this on a Monday. And it'll go out on Friday.
strange.
So we're not cutting it quite as close as we did last time. That was
Thursday.
That was really a little close for comfort there. So our banter won't be quite as relevant, I guess, today. Like right now, the big thing is like veepstakes. Who's it going to be? We'll know tomorrow.
Right.
We don't know right now because it's Monday. But by the time this drops, we'll probably already, all hate the person that Kamala Harris has picked. But our predictions, we can find out on Friday if we're right or wrong.
I think we're going to love whoever she picks, unless she picks, I don't know, Joe Rogan or something like that.
Gross. Gross. Either of you guys drop any, dead baby bear cubs in Central Park lately?
Not in Central Park.
Not it.
No? Okay.
I usually pick a less conspicuous place
Okay. All right.
where bear cubs might actually be.
Okay.
So no, can't say as I have.
All right.
But I do find RFK relatable though because of that story, because of all the bear cubs that I have.
Haven't we all been?
Yeah,
Who among us, right? I mean, don't judge. Who among us has not dropped a, dead bear cub, random location before, right? Because we ran out of time to skin it and save the meat.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Like my intentions were good. I was going to eat it.
Exactly.
I was going to eat the roadkill bear.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep.
Good times.
All right. We got a big topic for today, and this one's going to push our time limit. So let's go ahead and we'll break for our first break here. We'll come back and talk about what it is that we're going to be discussing this week.
Yay.
All right, we are back, and this week we're returning to a subject that we discussed a while back. A little what we like to call around here a blank to blank, which reminds me, we need a little bit of a vocab refresher here. Blank to blank, of course, a stand-in for a phrase that we're not going to say it, right?
Yeah, we can say it. The thing is,
we're going to just say it once.
It gets over said. It's like everyone thinks they're clever because that was called he considered it a teenage symphony to God.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah, we're of course referring to the legendary SMiLE project.
Yeah.
AKA a blank to blank.
Right.
So we do have, I've got in my notes here, we do have to have some vocabulary refreshers. The term pocket symphony.
That's another one. Yeah.
Which was used to reference the single Good Vibrations.
You get it? You get it? It's like a symphony.
It's a symphony. And
in your
fit
pocket.
In your pocket.
It's like 4 minutes long.
Yeah. Modular recording. That's on the vocab quiz. Basically, this idea that you are recording fragments of songs and then assembling them together to create a larger piece. And those fragments, of course, guys, you remember they're referred to as what?
Feels?
Feels.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Good job, Tim.
See, I hesitated because didn't he also refer to just like ideas and stuff, like little pieces that he would come up with as feels, not necessarily recorded sections of songs?
I don't know.
Okay.
I make the test, all right? I don't take the test. I make it. Anyway, so we talked several episodes back. I don't remember what episode number it was, but you can find it in the archives there. But the SMiLE project, of course, Brian begins this after Pet Sounds, and 1966, the Good Vibrations single comes out. It's a smash. I mean, this thing's fucking huge, right? That Pocket Symphony is just everywhere. Number one on iTunes.
Right.
It is like, it's like the Brat summer of 1966.
Yeah, it's all over TikTok.
Yeah, yeah, all over the place. And everybody's like, what's he gonna do next, right? What he's gonna do next is he's gonna make a whole album in this modular recording, kind of thing. And everybody's sitting around waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting.
It's because it's not small enough to fit in your pocket. It's very big.
People didn't have big enough pockets.
Yeah.
Zoot suits were out of style by this point, and so you couldn't fit SMiLE in your pocket
On your bell bottoms.
and so
too tight.
It doesn't come out. 1967 comes along, and the only other thing that officially comes out, that's related specifically to the SMiLE sessions is Heroes and Villains, and that very much in a compromised form. And the thing doesn't happen. So the project falls apart. Bits and pieces of it trickle out over the course of the next several years. They release Smiley Smile, which Dennis, of course, calls a bunt instead of the Grand Slam. You get fragments, bits and pieces. Cabinessence comes out on 2020. Our Prayer comes out in 2020. Surf's Up, of course, contains the amazing title track. Pieces come out over the years. Bootlegs are going to circulate. Tape trading in the 1980s, eventually, MP3s circulating around. And throughout the years, the legend, the lore of SMiLE just grows and grows and grows. The greatest lost masterpiece in the history of popular music. And it's lost. It's lost.
And that's it.
Yeah,
Thanks for listening, folks.
And there's all of these, legends and different stories. Now,
yeah, I think there's a little bit of a narrative here that at this point in the story that needs to be picked up. That's kind of step back, because if you step back and look at the whole story arc, here are the Beach Boys putting out Stars and Stripes, and they're putting out Summer of Love, Mike Love's version of the Beach Boys. But Brian is over here as a solo artist at this point in the as we're going through the late 90s. And, he had been far removed from SMiLE. Anybody would mention SMiLE and he would be like triggered because it was like just traumatizing for him. But he gets back together with Van Dyke Parks and does Orange Crate.
That was around 98 or so, I think.
Right, 98. And then he's doing other albums. So there's like these little moments, these little flashes that are kind of coming into space. And so he's now touring on his own because Mike Love is off doing, Baywatch. and so, but Brian is still actually, doing stuff. And so he's meeting with Andy Paley and he's doing this, I've been dropping hints about these Paley sessions that he was doing in the late 90s as well. And so there's all these little projects going on. So Brian and
Orange Crate Art, sorry, I was wrong. It's Imagination that was 98. Orange Crate Art is 95.
Okay, so 95 he's with Van Dyke Parks.
And that's the year of Baywatch.
And then Andy Paley and Brian are working on some stuff. And so they have all of these things, which again still has never come out. Knock on wood, something. Yeah. So, but at this time, Melinda is like, oh, hey, you should do this country thing. So they do Stars and Stripes and it flops. But Brian's starting to do some independent stuff and he needs a backing band because Mike is taking the Beach Boys from him. And so they're looking for a group, and Andy Paley takes him to this concert, and they see the Wondermints, right? Yeah. And so the Wondermints perform a version of Surf's Up, and they're like, oh, this is special. And so Melinda invites them to be the backing band. So like, there's little baby steps happening here, and like, so the Wondermints come along. He's worked with Van Dyke on Orange Crate. Then, you know, as the Wondermints are doing stuff, again, he's standoffish. He's like, I'm not gonna, you know, they can't even mention. There's another piece, a baby step in here. Like somebody requests Heroes and Villains at like
at a party or something, right? Yeah, this is in the documentary, and we talked about that documentary quite a bit in the SMiLE project podcast, The Beautiful Dreamer.
Right, and normally he's standoffish. He's not going to do anything.
Actually, I don't think it was even requested. I want to say like he's at a party, and it's Darian.
Sahanaja.
Yeah, and like he's talking, he's just sharing this anecdote in the documentary where like Brian's just sitting at a piano, and all of a sudden he just starts playing Heroes and Villains.
David Leaf requested it. It says
or his wife, David Leaf's wife requested.
Right,
so it wasn't. So it was like somebody on the side that he wasn't close enough with to that he could yell at. But like for some reason, because normally he would just like ignore them or go away. But in this one instance, he obliges and he plays Heroes and Villains. And so now it's like all these little like, oh, okay. And so apparently Darian is like, you know, as they're like working on their, you know, their live set, they like sprinkle in little pieces from the SMiLE sessions to incorporate into part of their, into their tour. And so, like, little by little, Brian's, like, a little bit more open to revisit this thing that was really traumatic for him, right?
Well, yeah, absolutely. And a little bit more context. He had performed Pet Sounds in its entirety. There was a live release of Pet Sounds. I think it came out, like, 2002-ish, I want to say. Let me look here. 2002. So he had done that in its entirety. So there's almost even kind of like that sequential where do you go after you perform Pet Sounds in its entirety kind of a thing. So,
and it went really well. It went over well. Everybody loves,
of course. There is this just kind of like momentum that seems to be building towards, well, maybe it's time to revisit SMiLE.
And then they do this live, and they do this live thing, and there's this great reception. Like everybody is, you know, on board, and it gives you a little insight. You know, we've been referring to this documentary, The Beautiful Dreamer. You know, I highly recommended. You should totally watch that.
Way better than that Disney Plus documentary.
Yes, but it tells this whole story. Super worthwhile, but like you get a sense that Brian was he's sensitive, and he's like this thing is like a child of his, but there's a lot of trauma involved in it, and like part of that trauma is like Mike Love and other douches saying this is too crazy and this is too wild. No, we can't do this. And I think that leads into why he shelved it so many times.
Oh, wait a minute. Sounds like it's time for an episode of Heroes and Villains. That's right. It's Heroes and Villains. We're discussing the heroes and the villains, whatever it is we happen to be talking about this week. And this week we're talking about
Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE.
Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE, yeah. Hero, I mean, duh. Obviously, Darian. Brian Wilson, but yes.
Darian, yeah.
Darian, absolutely. He does some like critical heavy lifting in one, helping Brian to resurrect SMiLE as a live endeavor, and also in terms of, you know, making it as an album. But I think a critical thing that he does specifically is he helps Brian do the thing that he couldn't do in 1966 and 67, and that is take all of these fragments and turn them into something cohesive.
Right.
That actually has the flow. And I think technology played an important role in that, because when we're talking 66, 67, you're literally like cutting and splicing tape, and it's like a physically messy process.
And it's got to be daunting just to think about like all of these different feels that we have.
Well, it's overwhelming. Like, you know, we'll talk about the SMiLE Sessions box set in a little while. like 5 discs worth of this stuff, which is only probably really the tip of the iceberg, and it's presented in a cleaned up version.
Right.
You have to imagine, it's just this like overwhelming amount of stuff. But what Darian is able to do is he basically just takes all of the critical pieces of it, puts it onto a computer, and he says, here's the stuff. I'm going to map it out and help it, like visualize it and make a little bit more sense of it.
Right.
Where can this stuff go? And he really, he's referred to as the musical secretary, basically, of the project. And he does some critical heavy lifting and helping, again, take what was already pretty damn well, almost entirely written. And bring it to completion.
And you got to think that there's moments where, as Brian is making all of these little feels and, back in the 60s, he probably has a vision and an idea of how they're going to come together eventually. But like, it's so, when he gets whispers in his ear that, oh, this is too crazy, can't do it, then he like doubles back and is like, am I really going to put in the effort to this that I'm probably going to get crapped on? And may or may not, but now, like, okay, Darian's come in, made it a little bit more accessible, and given him that chance, and the success of the live version of it has given some of that momentum. So Brian, Darian, superhero.
And it's a lot of it's his own voice too. He would do something and it was like, oh, that's great, and then he would like, well, I'm going to try to do it better now, as well too. It's tricky, but so obviously Brian is the hero of all heroes.
Yeah,
Darian's a hero, but also
Parks.
yes, exactly, coming back into the picture in 2003, 2004 to bring this thing also back to completion is a returning hero, Van Dyke Parks, who comes back and finishes the last remaining, lyrics and helps to just bring the whole thing full circle. Of course, the SMiLE
that were written but not documented.
Some that were that were already written, and I think they did actually write a few new things as well too. Just again, and it brings the whole project full circle back into just Brian and Van Dyke in the sandbox, not literally now at this point, but back to where the whole dream had started with SMiLE. 30, 40, 38 years or whatever before.
And cheers to Van Dyke too, because he got crapped on back then. Like it was like, he comes in to lend his artistic abilities, and people are like, get out of here, we don't want you. And it's like, come on. And so he was able to kind of like swallow some of that baggage and still be willing to come for the sake of the art. So cheers, Van Dyke. Thank you.
Yeah, and in that documentary, just watching Brian and Van Dyke interacting with each other, it's still just, it's heartwarming.
Yeah.
Seeing them, burying the hatchet and just just getting back to that collaborative spirit in their older year. It's great. I love it.
Heroic.
All right, well, where there are heroes, we know there are also villains too. And the absolute villain of all of this stuff is... Of course, it's Mike Love.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the SMiLE Sessions box here in a little bit. And, like I'm reading through the notes and that, and, they all pen their own little essays for it. And...
Oh, okay.
Mike's like, well, he spends most of the time talking about good vibrations and everything, but the lyrics of SMiLE just really weren't my cup of tea, and the phrase that I used was acid alliteration, and like, just shut up,
I'm surprised that wasn't in your vocabulary quiz.
Yeah,
I'm not surprised, but I feel like when Mike is giving Van Dyke shit about the crow cries, uncover the cornfields, Van Dyke could have been like, what the fuck is an excitation, Mike?
Yeah, exactly. Why the fuck are you writing about root beer?
Also,
you're a grown man. Like, give me a fucking break.
We're ahead of the curve here. Of course, as soon as this comes out, now Mike Love wants a piece of it.
Well, yeah, and especially by 2004, like, there's money that you can make off this because, God, how many, different artists had based their blueprint of their careers off of Pet Sounds and SMiLE. Now it's profitable, so Mike's all about it now.
Which is so infuriating because he's the reason it didn't come out.
Of course, yeah.
Like he's a big part of why this got shelved and lost.
And again, we mentioned in the first podcast about SMiLE, in the Beautiful Dreamer documentary, when they asked Brian, why does it not come out in 1967? The very first thing he says is, Mike didn't like it.
Yes.
The very first thing
Mike
he says.
threw it away. It's in the trash.
Yeah.
Right? It's gone.
It's on you, Mike.
He's left it. So now Brian picks it up. That's why it's Brian Wilson presents SMiLE.
Yeah.
Because Mike Love had nothing to do with this.
All right.
He's out of there. Even though he does actually sue Was there an actual
he gets
lawsuit?
he gets a writing credit, of course, on Good Vibrations.
Yeah.
'Cause,
He attempts to. Apparently, there's a lawsuit.
I'm sure there was.
Mike Love gave an interview. He said, "I guess it's a good thing for Brian to do. A friend sent me a copy," referring to Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE in 2004. But I haven't had time to hear it yet because we've been on tour.
Way too busy.
Right.
Cozying up to NASCAR.
And
Filling up his tank at 76.
yeah, he also
idiot.
he also said,
By the way, I think I saw somewhere. Hold on, that thing came out. I didn't mention this last time. Came out literally the same month that Carl Wilson died.
Oh God.
Yeah. Rip Carl.
His quote then says, I would have thought it would have been more honorable to put it together as the Beach Boys.
Yeah, you know what? Take a time machine back to 1967, dickhead.
Yeah.
Honorable.
Yeah.
Honorable thing.
Yeah.
Oh, so,
you.
villain.
Yep. All right, well, hey, let's take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE as an album.
Yeah.
We are back to talk Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE. We are going to look at this piece of art from 2004. Finally gets presented, even though it's been in the works. Brian gets together, they re-record Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE. They consolidate all of the different feels, put them together. Brian envisions them the way that they could have been, should have been. Gets back in the studio with Darian.
So what you're saying
company.
is this is SMiLE Brian's version?
This is Brian's
Yeah.
version.
Yeah.
Brian, not the Beach Boys.
Yeah.
This is Brian.
We kind of have to sort of talk about our own knowledge of the Beach Boys, I guess, in a sense. Like when we came to really kind of know the Beach Boys, not of just like, oh, Kokomo and Flight of the Navigator and all those things that we talked about as, kids. So I became, a Beach Boys fan, if you will, when I heard Pet Sounds in late 1998 or early 1999. I was right around, the turn of the calendar year. And at that point, I'm like, all right, Pet Sounds, this is fucking amazing. I eventually got a greatest hits thing, and I was like, all right, I got Pet Sounds, I got a best of. That's probably all I need of the Beach Boys. I was familiar with the idea that SMiLE was this thing. My impression, though, was it got shelved. It was completely shelved. It was lost because, again, that was the phrase you heard: lost album.
Lost recordings. Yeah.
I didn't know, Surf's Up comes out, on the album of the same name, and Cabinet. Like, I didn't know that stuff. My understanding was this album is just lost, and like that Brian Wilson himself had even like destroyed the master tapes of it. Like it was that lost, like that the whole thing is just gone. We're never gonna get it. Did you guys have any knowledge of SMiLE prior to 2004?
No.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I didn't even get to Pet Sounds until after that. Like,
Okay.
I didn't.
Yeah, probably same.
Okay, so I was just kind of wondering then, like, what was SMiLE something that came out as you would have been Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE? Is
Right.
this something would have been coming out as you were anticipating? Okay,
No.
so no, all right. So I was at that point, but I would say that I was I wasn't anticipating it. It was a shock to anybody. But it coming out was something that I was like, oh shit, like this is going to be a pretty big deal kind of thing. But I will also say I was pretty misinformed, I guess, about what SMiLE actually was. Because again, I was like really, sold in the city that it is lost. I had no idea the bootlegs being traded. I had no idea of even like the think it's the Good Vibrations box set that had come out in 1993 that had a lot of the fragments of what would eventually be, the SMiLE sessions.
You weren't out there on Napster?
No, I
downloading?
wasn't. I wasn't. No, I was like 101 level. Like I, had and loved Pet Sounds. I had a compilation. I was like, this is probably all you need to the Beach Boys. So now it's like, all right, well, Brian Wilson has apparently finished the lost masterpiece. And the original, breaking news was that he was just going to perform it live.
Right.
And it's this London concert. He's going to perform SMiLE, a finished SMiLE in its entirety. Which, of course, I wasn't going to be able to go to London to see SMiLE perform.
Right.
That's a big deal, All right, cool. And then an album. Like, he's recording it.
But they're all re-recordings of those tapes from before. And we have 3 movements now we've boiled them down into. So we need to take these movements. Yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's take a look at them.
First thing I want to say is controversial opinion about the overall thing. It's too long.
What?
It's too... I just want to set the stage by saying
Wow.
it's too long.
Wow.
And then we can go from there.
Well, so one thing that I will say in reference to the actual, is it too long? Probably. And the only reason why I'm going to agree with that is if this would have come out in 1967, yes, it probably would have been too long because it would have been a little bit too long to have fit on a single LP. So yes,
yeah, 2.5.
A double was
1.5.
pretty. A double would have been pretty rare at the time. I know Blonde on Blonde, which came out in like May of 1966, was I think the first rock pop double LP. I don't think that. I don't think the Beach Boys would have done a double album. So I think they would have kept the time probably to about 40, 42-ish minutes. So this is 47, basically. So yeah, I would agree in the sense that if we had gotten a finished SMiLE in 1967, it probably would have been a little bit shorter.
Yeah,
than
it
this.
would have had to be cleaned up a little bit
Yeah.
to put movement 1 and movement 2 on the A side, movement 3 on the B side.
I could cut at least 4.5 minutes out of it right now. I'll tell you that.
Are you talking that Good Vibrations shouldn't be on it?
Oh, well, that actually, if you include that, that's like 9 minutes.
Because Good Vibrations has always been a little bit of a like, does it really fit? Was it intended for it? And
That's a good point.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's obviously an amazing song.
Right.
So
it's
again,
an all-timer. There's never a time when it's like, oh, you know what? I don't want to hear this song.
Right.
And I think it works well as a closer. And it ends the album on a little bit of a... Here we are. We're talking about the third movement now. We've kind of jumped the gun here. But yeah, I mean, it's a good conversation, but it's not one that we necessarily need to have right now.
Right.
So, and again, the other thought is, because normally we talk about the A side, talk about the B side. This is presented in 2004 when it's really largely a CD listening experience. And so this comes out in a CD.
Yeah, I'm kicking myself for not having bought the vinyl version because it's now selling for like $150.
Yeah, I've been looking.
Next time I'm at George's house, friend of the podcast, George, I'm going to steal his record.
Is it a double? It's a double.
It's a double. I want to say that only 3 of the sides are used.
Oh, okay. Or they put the. Or they put the.
Yeah, I'm looking at right now. Yeah, there's some instrumental tracks.
Yeah,
on the D
instrumentals
side.
on the side 4 of the vinyl release. Right. Yeah. So the first movement kicks off, and again, these are feels that have been scattered all over. But Brian, in his mind, is like, it needs to begin with our prayer in G.
I mean, that whole first movement is just like perfect.
Yeah,
I think
it's great.
It all flows together. It's almost like it's all one song until you get to Cabin Essence, which kind of sticks out as an individual song. But like, yeah, it just goes. It feels like the whole movement could be just called Heroes and Villains, and then Cabin Essence. It's just really, really well done, I think.
Yeah, those 2 pieces are major, obviously, but that first movement is fantastic. We talked already quite a bit about Heroes and Villains and a bit about Cabin Essence in the first podcast on SMiLE. We didn't really talk about Roll Plymouth Rock, because it's also known Do You Like Worms? It's a good song. I like it. Catchy as all hell. But yeah, like, I really like this sequence, and we're going to talk a little bit ahead as we get into SMiLE sessions. This one feels a little more flowy to me. Like it works really well to the point of when I started listening to the SMiLE sessions instead, like I kind of wanted this version.
Yeah.
The transition from G right into Heroes and Villains is great. The crossfade from Heroes and Villains into Roll Plymouth Rock is great. There's just some really nice, smooth transitions in here.
Yeah.
That whole first movement it's stellar. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's perfect.
This is the one, Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE is the one I reach for when I'm feeling like listening to SMiLE, as opposed to the SMiLE sessions, just because this sequencing is so great. Like I'll just put it on, and I don't listen to it as songs, which is kind of weird even looking at it. It feels like they even, the way they named it, Our Prayer /G, it's almost like they had to do that because people are going to be expecting, which bits did you pull? Which feels did you pull? And where are they? It's almost like this movement, like you're saying, could have been renamed or somehow divided, but because it's now CD markings and skips and, you got to do it that way.
Yeah. Lumping together, the various titles people might know these individual pieces as. Yeah.
Right, because that's been... those have been kind of leaked, so
it's so good. No, this beginning of it is so fantastic. And again, as somebody who was hearing this in 2004, all of this was new to me. I mean, of the SMiLE stuff, the only one I was familiar with was Good Vibrations at that point. And so this was all new music to me, and it was just fucking revelation. It's like, how did I not know about this stuff? It's so damn good.
See, and this is such a strong setup that going into the next movement, part of the next movement.
I was going to say, you don't say anything about Wonderful.
But like it sags so much, I think, in the middle of the second movement.
Are we ready to jump into the second movement then?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it starts with Wonderful, which is wonderful.
It absolutely is. Yeah. Oh, it's beautiful.
It's great. And then it goes to Song for Children and Child is the Father of the Man, which I hate. I think I hate both of those. Like, I think that, whatever he's trying to say with that stuff, it's the final act of Surf's Up, just like leave it at that. Surf's Up is what this movement ends on. And if you remove those other two songs, then it's not much of a movement in itself. But it's just like, this is the time of the album, I guess it would be almost 20 minutes in, and it's just like, are they just kind of repeating the same shit over and over again about child and man? Ooh, and it's only 4.5 minutes worth of music, but it's like, come on already. And then Surf's Up's amazing, and then they go back into that, and you're like, what the fuck?
How dare you? Let Brian have his vision.
I certainly don't hate it. I feel like it is maybe the lowest point, but I don't know. Instrumentally, I think it's great. I do feel like this is one of the points where I really missed the Beach Boys.
I gotcha.
I feel like with their vocals, I think I'd like it a bit. But instrumentally, some of those little musical passages in there are great. There are some parts of that I feel, because I think there are also some new lyrics as well in this part on Song for Children in particular, where it's like, it's not doing it for me quite as much. But I mean, come on, the bookends of that second movement,
sure,
just good God, Wonderful and Surf's Up are just glorious.
Yeah.
Let's take a minute here to talk about one of the elephants in the room here. Brian's voice is obviously that of a much older man, and we are comparing 20-something Brian in the original SMiLE recordings to 60-something Brian. What are your thoughts on?
He's doing pretty great. I mean, he doesn't sing that really high part of Surf's Up here. I don't think it's probably, I don't know if it's Darian or
no, it's not
Matt Jardine, or maybe.
Matt Jardine wasn't part of
involved?
it.
Okay.
He was. I want to maybe it might have been Team Mike at that point. Al was not in the Brian camp at that point. I think it was probably Jeffrey Foskett, who was kind of like Brian's right hand man for a while. Okay. Actually, just passed away not too long ago. Yeah. But he was a real critical part of Brian's band for a long time.
But yeah, that domino note is, and I don't think Brian even actually sang that on the the Surf's Up version of Surf's Up, right? I think that was Carl.
That was Carl, I believe, yeah.
Brian doesn't even really pull it off on that Leonard Bernstein documentary either. But I think he does really, he's doing pretty well. He does sound a little bit older, but he can still sing.
Yeah.
Well, not only can he still sing, but older Brian adds some gravity, right? I mean, especially to a song like Surf's Up, which is just so dense and so heavy that just having... And just obviously, just there's so much weight of just SMiLE. Not just that it's brilliant, beautiful music, but what it means in his personal biography, right? And that you're hearing this, aged guy who has been through so much, and that this music was such a, just again, looms so large in his legacy. I don't know. There's something very, very poignant, I think, about his voice. And yeah, it's not the same voice, and my guess is there's a bit of auto-tune helping him out with some of it too. Probably, but
Pro Tools.
Very subtly used then.
Yeah, it's not like, robot auto-tune, and we're going to talk about another album coming up here pretty soon where but no, like he's there's gravity, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. It's like a subtle psychological thing that I didn't really think of as to why, but now that I'm thinking about it, you're right. I think the tone of his voice might be what kind of gives this a little bit more heft. Yeah. Good for him.
Yeah. I like that guy.
Yeah.
Let's see here. One of the other things too, and I feel like even in that low point, maybe in the middle part of that second movement, just the sound of this record is great. Just the sound of the recording is really good. Yeah. This one's in stereo, and the one that we're going to talk about here shortly thereafter, most of what we're hearing there is not, and the album part of it is not in stereo. That's all mono. So the recording is very, very clean here. There are parts where it's like, all right, I can tell they're using a modern instrument, and I don't know if that's a real piano or a digital piano, and I sure hope that's a real marimba and not, a good MIDI one or whatever. Yeah. But by and large, this just sounds really, really good.
Yeah,
and it's a really nice, clean, clear, crystal presentation of brilliant music. And it might not have that warmth of the 66, 67 tapes, but it sounds really good. It's nice to hear this music sounding that nice and crisp.
Right, and I don't think it sounds like sterile or anything like that.
No. There's warmth.
So much going on. Yeah.
And they did record a lot of it in some of Brian's preferred. I had a note, and I think I accidentally erased it, but I don't think it was Western or Gold Star, but it was one of the studios that he, frequented in the 60s, at least, I believe, or where a lot of the work was done.
Sunset Sound.
Okay.
Yeah, and I listened to it with my fancy, high-quality earbuds, and it's just like all the layers are just, you can hear them all. But they blend so well too. So it's like, it's a really good production value, I think.
Yeah, and the stereo separation helps with that a whole lot, and you don't get that with the original tapes. So yeah.
The vocals were recorded using Universal Audio 2 mixing console, the same one that they used in the 60s. So yeah.
I don't know if it was recorded to tape. It was probably recorded digitally, but it sounds good. The strings, when the strings are used, they sound really nice and warm, so I like that. There's a nice bite to the cello. I think it's an Old Master Painter. I've always loved that. Yeah, I love that. So great.
So movement 3.
Movement 3. Again, I feel like I kind of just prefer this sequence in a lot of the ways to the one that ended up on. And again, they have the benefit of being able to fit. They've got finished product to work with here,
Yeah.
But I like it starting out with that. I'm in great shape, and yeah.
And then Vegetables.
I'm gonna go on record here. This is this is my favorite version of Vegetables.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these are like, for me, are kind of like the peak version.
Yeah.
Of certain songs. Like this Wonderful is probably my favorite Wonderful. Wind Chimes. Wonderful. Like the Sessions version is pretty much the same, but I don't know. Just maybe it's the sonic fidelity, just the finality. A lot of these I feel like are the the ultimate version because, of what came before. And like, this is the real intended presentation of, whatever song that we're hearing.
I'll give you vegetables.
That was yours.
I won't give you wonderful.
All right.
Roll Plymouth Rock because it actually has vocals.
Yeah.
Some of these, I think there's more than a few of them that you could say are definitive versions.
I prefer the "You're Under Arrest" from the Sessions. Here's some Villains because it's just funnier voice.
Yeah, because it's Brian on this one, and he's just like,
"You're under arrest," as opposed to "You're under arrest," whatever the hell.
I always want it to be Dennis on the original Beach Boys one, but it's
Is it Mike?
No, it's some dude.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I forget who.
Some dude.
It's some dude. Yeah.
But yeah, this whole sequence I love on a holiday, just in general. It's just a great catchy song.
Yeah, what do you think about the rap in there? I know they call it a rap. It's not really rapping. It's like the little pirate thing or whatever. Those I think were new lyrics.
Huh? I can't even hear that in my head. That part.
I think it's fine.
You got some wind chimes. Mrs. O'Leary's cow. The whole fire sequence I think is another little kind of a lull. I mean, it's got such an legendary kind of history to it. Like it's not like you could leave it out. And I mean, it kind of, I don't know.
Apparently, he won a Grammy for it.
For Mrs. O'Leary's cow?
For the instrumentation.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I could see that.
God,
I just feel like there's a lot of momentum kind of been going, and then that kind of slows things down. But wind chimes does too, I suppose.
I don't know. I shouldn't waste my time on this part of the conversation, but I have never really cared about the Grammys.
Sure.
When this album came out, though, it was like one of those things. Like this just seemed like the biggest Grammy bait ever. Not Grammy bait in the sense like, oh, this is like made to win, but it just seemed like this is the most natural. This should be the album of the year kind of thing, and then didn't even get nominated for it. It's like, give me a break. Like if you're ever gonna just like give out like one of those, we're just the sentimental favorite because one, just obviously all the story and the industry importance, but two, because it's just fucking great, and anyway.
In Blue Hawaii, for some reason, I'm having trouble remembering how it ends. Because like I'm trying to think, would this actually have been a good ending song or not? If you take away Good Vibrations,
I don't think it would have worked as an ender. But it also goes really, really well into Good Vibrations because they bring back just that little bit of Our Prayer again too. I love that transition.
Oh, that's
actually
what it
from
is. Right.
Blue Hawaii into Good Vibrations. Yeah.
I guess it would have ended with a bookend of Our Prayer, which would kind of have worked, I think. But yeah, then Good Vibrations. I guess this. I mean, we already talked about it. Like,
I come down on the side of it should be there.
Yeah.
I
haven't really thought a lot about the difference, just the recording here versus the other one. Like, I don't know if I've listened closely enough to really pick apart. Like, did they do anything different? Does it sound, weird since it's not like literally chopped up the way the other one is? I love the original recording. I don't know. Did you guys listen like that closely?
Not that closely. Okay. I mean, I didn't.
There's just
There is something magical about that.
About the original.
Splicing the original. Yeah. But
we'll
again,
talk
I think
about that a little more in a minute.
When you talk about SMiLE, though, I think Good Vibrations needs to be part of that.
Yeah, I mean, especially live. If you're seeing a concert.
That's what you think of. Yeah.
Close it out big.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do we rate it now?
I think we can. I mean, there's the question whether we're going to rate it differently after talking about Sessions.
Well, I mean, my rating will definitely be with Sessions in mind. Yeah.
Mine isn't.
I guess the question is just: do we reveal our ratings yet, or do we wait until we rate them both?
There's no secret.
Okay.
There's no secret here. Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE is a Brian Wilson. It's the way it's put together. It's perfect. It's the way that it needs to be. Sure, maybe there are things that you would want differently, but you can't because this is the way it's presented. This is 2004 with the context, with the way that this has come together. The fact that it doesn't have the Beach Boys name on it, you won't find it on the discography of the Beach Boys. It's on Brian Wilson's solo discography. It's a Brian Wilson.
It's basically a Return of the Jedi special edition. So, you got that much better song and the computer animated guys dancing around in Jabba's palace, because that's how it was meant to be.
Sure.
Now, I do agree, though. Even with the things that I was talking about hating about it, I'd say it's still a Brian for the same reason. Like, this is... This
iconic.
Is the vision. This is
it.
Like, it wasn't like a thrown together bullshit, whatever.
And the drama and all of the story that leads up to it, the anticipation,
even just the final
release,
product,
and the final. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Even with the final, the way the final product is, like I said, when I'm hankering to listen to Heroes and Villains or any SMiLE session stuff, I put on Brian Wilson Presents.
Yeah, and in as much as you can romanticize the Sessions version and how
you hold that.
Yeah.
You can't deny that it's incomplete and fragmented.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, when this came out, again, blew my freaking mind.
Of course.
I was borderline obsessed with it. Just listened to it, and then immediately I was like, all right, now I got to go buy all of these other albums that have the bits and pieces. And I created from everything I could find my own version of, SMiLE by putting together the fragments from the Good Vibrations box set. And
you can still do that. That doesn't take away from
I know.
is.
But then, who else did that? The Beach Boys did that. And I will tell you all, I listened to Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE last night, and it was the first time I've listened to it in a long time. And also what was weird is I actually found myself thinking, maybe I don't like these transitions as much as I did. Because now maybe I feel like I don't know. But the story, 38 years later, Van Dyke coming back in. When it came out, it was absolutely a Brian. If you had asked me, 5 years ago, I'd be like, no, it's a Dennis, which really is a Carl, because we fucked that up so bad. But at the end of the day, it's a Brian.
Yeah, it's a Brian.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm so proud of you.
Yeah. Good job. Well done.
Good job, buddy.
Yeah.
We love you, Brian. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back to talk about the SMiLE Sessions box set.
Hi, everybody. We're back. It's just me and Matt. Glenn is no longer
Glenn's
part
gone.
of the podcast.
Yep. He has been fired, actually.
He has chosen the path of using the restroom during a recording, and that's the final straw.
Yep.
So no
Not
more
allowed.
Glenn. Bye.
Broke the rules.
Let's lock this door.
All right. Well, so now we are going to be talking about big news drops. All right. This is early 2011. We're now talking 7 years after. 7 years after Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE, news drops. Finally, after all these years, the Beach Boys are going to release SMiLE.
Hey, what do you, we kicked you out of the podcast for going to the bathroom. We already started.
Anyway, so the Beach Boys, they're going to release SMiLE. They announced this in relatively early, I want to say maybe April-ish, 2011. And then it's just like dragging their feet. Delays. Like, yep, of course. This is never going to really happen, right? But eventually, it comes out.
Oh, boy.
And is it ever a thing to behold? All right.
It's pretty cool. I mean, like, I've only experienced this on Spotify, but when you look at the pictures of, like, the actual stuff that comes with the box set when you buy it, it's pretty incredible.
I've got it.
Yeah.
It's great. You know what? It sounds like it's time for an episode of Sound and Vision.
What?
That's right. It's time for Sound and Vision, where we discuss all things aesthetic using scale provided to us by David Bowie. Glenn, if we really like something, we call it a low. That's right. David Bowie's masterpiece. Tim, if we don't like something, we call it a
No.
Never Let Me Down, in which David Bowie definitely let us down. David. Yeah, come on. And if it's in the middle, comfortable middle ground, let's dance. All right. David Bowie's okayest album. We did not visually rate Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE. Let's do that quickly, guys.
Low.
It's
a low.
Yeah, it's a low. Whatever.
It's the artwork.
I mean, I don't like. It's Let's Dance for me. Actually.
Yeah, I'm
The
gonna go Let's
flower
Dance.
thing, I don't know. It's
the
fine.
Victorian stuff kind of sort of works. Maybe not as much as it would. I don't know. The execution's fine, but I feel like I erred on the side of giving it the best score for the music, but I'm not going to do the same on the visual.
Oh, are we talking? You're saying Brian Wilson
Presents
SMiLE.
Right,
yeah,
right,
it's a Let's Dance. Okay, it's a Let's Dance.
This one, like we already when we talked about SMiLE before, we just
right. That's
the
what I'm saying.
album artwork. I gave it a low. Just the sort of markers.
Just the Frank Holmes
That's what I'm talking about. That.
But the box set,
the box set,
the one you have upstairs,
it's
like a diorama.
Yeah,
so cool.
It's just like 3-dimensional version of the SMiLE shop with these layers.
Yep.
I could just spend the day with that thing going through and just like
and
flipping
all the stuff on the inside,
essays
big
by
book.
the major players plus Mike Love. It's I mean, it's got the original cover art, the Frank Holmes thing.
It doesn't even say
that little
sessions.
3D
It just says the Beach Boys SMiLE, right? Yeah, which is great.
Well, and I will say, like, even the Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE, the CD, the artwork that comes through on that, like, you get to see the each of the tracks, quote unquote tracks with the lyrics. It's nice to see them set out like that. But yeah, and the box set is pretty glorious.
Yeah, box set's great. It's a low.
It's a low. No question.
Yeah. All right. Good episode. Okay. So the SMiLE Sessions box set finally comes out in the fall of 2011, and now at long last we have the Beach Boys SMiLE not complete, but now we got maybe everything, close to everything, lots of everything. I don't know. You got 2 LPs, you got 5 CDs, 1 entire disc of Heroes and Villains, 1 entire disc of Good Vibrations. It is a lot to listen through. It's fascinating stuff. You got all kinds of really cool things that never actually made it onto any real version of SMiLE. Like Brian Wilson falls into a piano and all that kind of thing. Right. And great little outtake stuff like he gives speeches and You're Welcome, which are cool little tracks.
It's crazy. And I'll say that when you look up SMiLE Sessions on Spotify, you'll get one version that's like 60 tracks and another one's like 139. But they're labeled the same thing.
The 60 was like the double... like the 2 CD version, which is the first thing that I bought before I bought the big elaborate box set.
But but they have the same label. There's no distinguishing them when you search it. So just check. If you want the whole thing, it is there. Yeah. But you have to click on like the second one that comes up.
Yeah.
It's
so this
way too much.
Whole way too much. Sure, is like I'm
great.
going to sit down and listen to it. But
I love the documentation. Like when
you are in the mood to hear that, it's like.
I love the Beatles stuff. Whenever they put out a bonus thing, if I'm on a plane trip somewhere, I'll just put on the extra, like all the 17 versions of whatever song. It's great. You get to hear the evolution as they go. Like, well, that didn't work. This works, and all that stuff. So,
well, it's fascinating too because it's really kind of opened up the floodgates of this whole cottage industry of hey, make your own version of SMiLE because now you've got all these legitimate and the best that they're ever going to sound. Stems basically for people to work with to create their own 20-minute version of Heroes and Villains using all of these crazy little outtakes that weren't in the officially released versions, which is. I think we used this. We did in the last SMiLE podcast. Like, it's a perfect metaphor that this album begins with Brian and Van Dyke in a sandbox because that's what this album's legacy really is. Like, Beach Boys fanatics can continue to just make their own version of SMiLE over and over again.
It's like a Lego kit.
Yeah. Like it's a Lego kit without instructions. Like, make your own version of SMiLE, and this is like a gigantic box of Legos. Make whatever version of SMiLE you want, and whatever you do with it, well, maybe not whatever you do with it, but chances are it's going to be pretty fucking cool because the source material is great.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Al, I'd alluded this off camera. Al was talking about Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE, and he's like, I didn't give it a lot of thought when it first came out. I didn't want to go there at the time. They were good enough. to send me a copy, so I dropped the needle, as they used to say, listened to a few cuts. It was very nice, and then here it is, but there's nothing like the vintage recordings. There's nothing like the original, and that's what the SMiLE Session box allows you to do, is you get to go and hear the things that we previously thought were lost, but here they are in their raw form, and enjoy.
And in some cases, not their raw form as far as the album itself. Like Surf's Up, I went down a whole rabbit hole on Surf's Up because, Carl had to do so much to like splice it together just for the Surf's Up album, and I'm like, well, what version is this? Because that was supposedly didn't exist, and it was a similar thing where somebody involved in the project kind of had to splice it together with different parts, but it ends up being the same version that we know.
Yeah, so the sessions, like all of the stuff that's on the extra CDs, that's all the 1966 and first half of 1967, things that were recorded as part of the SMiLE Sessions. Now, what we're talking about really now, let's narrow our focus to their presentation of the closest thing that we will ever get to a Beach Boys SMiLE album. Yeah. The first, 18 tracks. They did have to get a little bit creative with that to create a Beach Boys SMiLE. It's still, even with that creativity, it's still kind of unfinished. Do You Like Worms, for instance, doesn't have any verses in it. It still has the rock roll, Plymouth Rock, all that. But there are still parts where you're like, oh, okay, I know there's supposed to be something here, but there isn't.
And they don't flow together. Like you can almost hear where like a transition is supposed to be, but then it just like kind of stops and then starts again.
Yep. Yeah. So there are a few of those where it's like, I kind of wish that, but in order to create, again, the closest thing that we're ever going to get to a finished SMiLE album, they did have to get a little bit creative in terms of, they pulled a few things from the SMiLE Sessions. They did a couple of things from like the Heroes and Villains single version, which wasn't officially part of the SMiLE Sessions, I think. And then, as Tim alluded to, they actually pulled, it's like the whole coda, basically, from the 1971 Surf's Up recording. So like the latest, and that's the real outlier, that there is actually something from 1971 on there. Most of the other stuff, like the latest stuff, is from like the summer of 1967. So like SMiLE era, But yeah, they present to us 19 tracks, sorry.
With good vibrations. It's great. I mean, like you were talking about hearing the Beach Boys sing some of this stuff as opposed to, whoever, not whoever, but you know what I mean? Like the recognizable Beach Boys voices being involved in certain parts of this are kind of a nice, like, oh, that's cool. This is like, how it could have been. Like this could have been the Beach Boys singing this stuff.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that element of it. And just putting it together, putting the puzzle pieces together to sort of match what we've experienced now with Brian Wilson Presents is just kind of it's a nice thing to do. I'm glad they did that. Thanks, guys. And yeah, because it does help you like imagine what it could have been like. And the fact that it has come out at all means that in a sense it was finished, it does exist.
Yeah.
Like if you prefer to hear those voices, you can listen to this version and it's essentially the same experience.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is, we can say, there is now a Beach Boys SMiLE album.
Yeah.
It runs from Our Prayer to Good Vibrations. It has the Beach Boys voices on it. It has their name on the packaging. It says SMiLE. It is a Beach Boys SMiLE album. And what do we think of it in terms of compared to Brian Wilson Presents SMiLE?
I mean, I also give it a Brian.
Yeah, it's a Brian. Like that's the other thing. It's now what the completion has already been done. We've already scored the putting it together that Brian did in 2004.
And redoing it, that, completely re-recording it.
And re-recording it. That re-recording is a low. And now we're going back and that gets a Brian. And this one now is, wow, this, like Al said, there's nothing like the original recordings. So here they are. Yeah. Here's the album now.
It's like a Brian for different reasons.
Yeah, it's a Brian for different reasons, but it's the same album and it's still
and it illustrates that like was pretty damn close to being finished.
Oh yeah.
Like it really kind of emphasizes how much Mike fucked it up by like they were so close. Yeah, exactly. Right. And it just fell apart when like they had almost all the elements ready to go.
It also does raise the question of, just Darian's heavy lifting, right? I mean, what we have that came out in 2011 was very, very much based on that roadmap that Darian helped Brian complete. And so that's really, really critically important in appreciating and understanding this version of SMiLE as well, too. That we couldn't have had this version, I don't think, in 1967. We can say that they were close, but we'll never really know how close they were, just because that hardest piece of the quote unquote modular recording is how do you actually assemble it?
Right.
The work, part of the work had been done, but we could make the argument that the hardest part was still what had to be done. That heavy lifting in 2004.
Right, because you can imagine, especially if you're anyone except Brian, it's just a mess. Like, what the hell is all this? What do we even do with it? It might exist as recordings,
and probably
but
to Brian, it was a mess too. That was part of what maybe overwhelmed him.
Maybe it wasn't, but he just wasn't willing to share
right.
the grand plan because he was like embarrassed or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so if you were picking between one or the other.
I still go for Brian's for that first movement.
Preferred Brian
at least, but like
to sit down and listen to.
Okay.
For the first movement, I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah, for me.
All right. Well, Brian Wills Presents SMiLE is legit great, but holy hell! I mean, this SMiLE, beautiful, magical.
It is magical.
Utterly fucking haunting music. It is the Brianiest Brian that ever Brianed that is not Pet Sounds.
Right.
It is goddamn close to Pet Sounds. It is glorious. So damn good.
This is why I can't wait for Cows in the Pasture. This is why
Cows in the Pasture will be fine, but this is SMiLE. This is
because of how great this is. It makes me want to go back in all of those projects, the Paley sessions. Like I'm like, oh my gosh, this was just laying there. Like, jeez.
Well, and something else that I only just now thought of with the Pet Sounds sort of mention is that like, SMiLE is great for for its own reasons, but like. They could have taken this material, and if they had thrown out the sort of thematic and the overarching kind of symphony of it, and just like pieced together the best parts, and like that could have been a Pet Sounds right there. Because Pet Sounds was individual songs, and there's enough of like
individual
just really
songs.
incredible individual songs on here.
Absolutely,
that could have been this. That could have been SMiLE, and that would have been epic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, let's take one last quick break, and then we will wrap it all up.
Yeah.
Wrapping things up here.
That was solid, especially after we had to go through the slaw.
I know.
Yeah, it was nice to listen to something good again.
It's been nice, after having a payoff after, Stars and Stripes and
Full House,
having to watch Home Improvement. And, it's getting late. Yeah.
Girls are always ready.
Girls are always ready. See, I don't even know what you guys are talking about because I pushed it all out of my brain.
Good for you.
Yeah, no, this has been a nice cleanse, and
it has left me with a smile.
Oh, I get it.
Well, there's only one more Beach Boys album left. We got a few other things that we're going to be discussing, but
we're on the downward spiral here. This has been glorious.
And then we're going to become a Baywatch podcast.
Yeah, apparently.
Finally,
plenty epissodes to cover.
Our destiny will be fulfilled.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, we'll catch you next week when we're talking about something.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.